Hello and welcome. Court Vision is back in session. It's the NBA Playoffs 2026 edition. We're going to give you our predictions as we always do. And you got Kilroy, Mongo, and 26 playoff Spurs. Tommy apparently is his name. It's a long name. I'm not going to call you that this whole time.
Nah.
Let me brush my teeth.
Okay, you can go.
I'll be right back.
All right, so
Riveting.
the play-in has started, so we're a bit behind on that. But currently we are down to just two play-in games left, and then the playoffs shall start. We are going to. It doesn't really matter who wins them, right? Because they're just who plays the one seed. So, unless you guys think Detroit or OKC is going to lose to either of those teams.
Not really. I think the Warriors might be able to shoot themselves into making it a gentleman's sweep or maybe even six, but no, they're both fine.
Yeah. What about you, Tommy? Are you picking Golden State or Phoenix over OKC?
If it's Phoenix, it's a 4-game sweep. Thunder beats them easily. If it's the Warriors, I like 6 games, but Thunder winning.
Interesting. What about Detroit? Detroit, Charlotte, or Detroit, Orlando?
So that's a tough one. I think Detroit's the team that might have some a rocky playoff start, and I think it's because those two teams could give them some trouble, especially if it's Charlotte.
Yeah, it's weird that we live in a world where we've talked so much on this show over the last several seasons about Orlando's journey, through their picks, right? We've watched them literally come from nothing. And now all of a sudden of these three teams, they're the veteran team, right? I mean, it's crazy to think about, but Detroit and Charlotte are actually the young teams in this situation. So even though I agree with you, Tommy, that I think Orlando is the third worst of these three teams in this conversation, I think their experience might be able to stifle Charlotte's little mini run here. And then I think might also be the team that could actually sneak out a win versus Detroit. Because, listen, I love what Charlotte's done the second half of the season, but the one thing you could say about Detroit is you might be able to out-experience them in the playoffs. Charlotte can't make that claim. Charlotte can't really make that claim against anybody. And so, it's a rough spot for Charlotte to be in. It's a lucky spot for Detroit to be in. Orlando looks like it's ready to implode on itself, no matter what you want to think of them with their coaching issue currently going on. So, again, I think we have a weird situation here where, lack of sort of a dominant team, meaning like a team that would win every category. I think Detroit just on talent alone is going to be safe here.
I think you're correct on that. I do think if it is Orlando, it will go 5 or 6. But honestly, I don't think that Charlotte would go beyond 5. I just can't see it, especially if Khan is not going to be, if he's going to play like he just did in the other playing game. They need him on his game in order to make it a series against Detroit.
No. Mommy's phone has a...
Yeah, I think the other argument you can make here is there is no... I think the 1 through 4 in the East are much closer than 3 and 4 are to 1 and 2 in the West, to a point where the first round would be the round that the East might be overlooking, whereas like the Spurs or Thunder might be looking past the semifinals matchup, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'd be more worried about the Thunder coming out, and putting up a dud in the second round. They get overconfident and think, sort of manifest destiny, straight path to the finals there. This would be the one that Detroit would be overlooking because they're not going to be able to look past anyone, who they find in the second round. The sort of second tier of the East is just too collectively close. So, I think that matters too here, where it would be very easy for, Detroit to kind of take this first round, as sort of the overconfident round, whereas, the West, they might already be kind of looking ahead to where, this feels more almost like a formality out in the West, which honestly it kind of does for most of the first round in the West, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that the East, they're more likely to be looking past this than they are where the West would be looking more past the second round, and that there's a chance if there's going to be a place where there's a potential slip up, it would be the second round for the Western Conference. Let's move on. So that was the 1 seeds. Let's go to the 2 seeds. We got Spurs, Portland, and then Boston, Philly. Let's start with Spurs so that Tommy can talk.
Sorry, buddy. There's not a lot to talk about. It's not a lot to
There's
talk
not
about
much
the
to
first
talk
round,
about.
but I mean, if you want to.
So we all agree Portland's winning in 4, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Portland's winning in 4 if they're allowed to play themselves. I mean, this is. I think you might not get a chance to see it because these might all be sweeps, or they might all just be. We talk about it all the time on this channel, right? 4 and 5 in the first round are basically equal. But if these were like best of 21s where you actually got to start to see like longevity play out, I think the 1-8s are actually closer than the 2-7s in both. I think both of these 2 seeds, got pretty lucky on how these play-ins played out, and B are not far. I would make the argument the 2 seed in the East, because of having the experience, might actually be better suited to start the playoffs than Detroit right now. The Spurs and Thunder are pretty much 1A, 1B. So I don't think either of these 2s are really truly 2s in a sense. I don't think either of these 7s are truly 7s in a sense. And these should both be sweeps.
Fair enough. Tommy, anything you want to add about Boston, Philly?
Nah, Boston's gonna sweep Philly pretty quickly, and the Spurs are gonna sweep the Blazers pretty quickly. I saw someone say that Blazers are gonna win in 7, and I'm like, what planet are you living on, my friend?
Now, I do have a question. I don't think it will impact the game, but I am curious. Is Dame going to be ready?
I have no clue.
I have no clue.
I have not tracked anything, Dame.
Did not bother. He looked real fun cheering on his teammates. I think it's a great story. It was real fun watching him, kind of bring the magic back to Portland. But there's only so much Sister Jean could do from the Loyola sideline. Like at some point, you have to accept the fact that talent matters. Like San Antonio is the infinitely better team here. I'm sorry, they are.
Okay. I get you. And you don't think that if Joel Embiid stays healthy, that could become an issue for the Celtics? Not even a little bit.
I think if it turns out that the Celtics have been lying, and the guy who they claim is Jason Tatum actually turns out to be 2 poodles in a trench coat, then yeah, Boston might be in trouble. But if Boston is actually on the court and healthy, no, they are a better team than the Sixers. I think, any stat you want to, I get it. Sixer fans out there listening, feel free to hate me in the comments for that. But I'm sorry, the bottom line is statistically, if you are going to ask me the question, should I start hypothesizing what Embiid can do? Well, I also have to then hypothesize Embiid doesn't make it through a 7-game series, right? Statistically speaking, the man is glass. And so if you want me to sit here and pretend can Embiid carry them in this gut-wrenching fight breaks out in game 4 a la 90s Knicks Heat, just absolutely bloodbath game, Embiid's not making it through that series. If this thing gets chippy enough that it goes to 7, Embiid's not making it through those 7 anyway. So a fun scenario to dream about, Sixers fans. But honestly, if you're the Sixers, you're thinking best case scenario, we take this thing in 5 on a couple bizarre 3-point shooting outings from some of our guards. But I don't see a word where Embiid is going to gut out a just grueling, division rivalry 7-game series, because you just don't imagine Embiid being standing there at the end of that anyway.
Fair enough. All right, let's move to 4-5 matchup. Lakers Houston, Cavs, Raptors. The Lakers are going into this very banged up. They are in a very unfortunate situation. Two of their best players are most likely going to miss most of, if not all of, the first round. You obviously can't count them out because LeBron is LeBron. However, I think you can count them out this time because there's just way too much to overcome. They don't have the depth. Losing, it'd be one thing if they lost just Luka or just Austin Reeves, but losing both of them, it just seems like it's going to be too much for them to overcome. Kevin Durant is healthy, right? They have other options, right? This isn't their first rodeo. A lot of these guys have played together for a while. I know it's Kevin Durant's first year in Houston, but Kevin Durant, is Kevin Durant, right? So I think as much as it was a great year for the Lakers in terms of how things went so not poorly, but we're not where they needed to be to becoming so dominant until Luka's injury and Austin's injury. Unfortunately, I think this fairy tale is going to end. I don't know if Houston's going to sweep. I don't even know if it's going to be a gentleman's sweep because if LeBron has anything to say, I don't think it will be a gentleman's sweep. But I do think ultimately in 6, Houston will win.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of work backwards here, sort of admit to yourself, where would we have been in a fully healthy matchup? And I like this Laker team, but I like this Houston team. I think both of these teams are unfortunate, to run into each other. I mean, we said for a while, Kevin would never admit it, but those of us who acknowledge the Lakers as a basketball franchise, have said for a while that the top 5 in the West was looking pretty good and somebody was going to have to run into each other 4 or 5. Like if Denver ran into Houston, I wouldn't feel great for Denver. Like just however it played out, there was going to be a tough first round matchup. And even in a vacuum, you could have sold me on Rockets in 6, if everyone was healthy. Now add in, there's no chance the Lakers can win this first game with all their injuries. Now Rockets in 6 was believable, and they're going to lose home field advantage by, losing that first game. Now you're starting to look at Rockets in 5 as a reality, and Rockets in 6 is really believable. So listen, for all the argument, I'm the biggest stars win the league guy we got on this team. But for every argument you can make about LeBron's been here, LeBron's done this, LeBron adds this, you can say the same thing about KD, right? They're 2 of the hardest outs in playoff history. So I don't even think that factors in here. Unfortunately, I'll go Rockets in 5. Even if they were healthy, like I said, Thompson's defense matters. Durant's experience matters. I'm with you guys. I think this one, unfortunately, is going to get out of hand pretty early.
Let's go over to Cleveland, Toronto. So I'm just not confident in Cleveland. They just don't seem to play well in the playoffs, and they brought in a known choker to be their big change with James Harden, and he's not known for being a playoff phenom or anything like that, and it just seems like it's going to be very difficult. Toronto is a solid team. They were very close at points to overthrowing the Knicks earlier in the year. This team has been together for a while now. I think that I'll still say Cleveland wins, but I think it's going to be closer than people think it's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland loses.
I got to be totally honest, and I apologize here. I'm looking at a quick fact for this last one. But if I was just asleep for the last 8 months, which in NBA regular season terms, we might as well all be half of the time, I would not have known the Raptors were in the playoffs. I get that records are what they are. I get that wins matter, but I'm sorry, there's nothing that excites me about this team particularly.
You mean RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes don't excite you?
listen. I love
Jakob
watching.
Poeltl doesn't excite you?
I love watching Scotty Barnes, but this is just a young. This is like going to your nephew's, rec pickup game, basketball game, or whatever. Like they're out there. They're having fun. They move around a lot. I'm not scared of this team. I've never been scared of this team. It's why I wanted the Knicks to play this team. It's why the Knicks can beat this team so easily, right? The Knicks beat them. I think it was something like an average of 21.6 points per game while sweeping them this season. It's because the Knicks are very fundamental in what they do. And when you simply just lay down the law on this team, when you simply just play good basketball, they're extraordinarily beatable. And so I think Cleveland has played together for a few years now. I think they are in that category. I actually think this is a case where I think Detroit might have had a harder time with Toronto. I think Atlanta, who kind of remodeled their team halfway through the season with the Porzingis trade, might have had a tougher time. But this is a team that's been together for a while. Toronto, like I said, is just, to me, that team that's out there to get beat by an experienced team. Cleveland checks that box well and good enough for me. I'll say Cleveland in 5. I could see Cleveland in 6. But again, I think there are non-4-5 matchups out there that are much closer. This should be closer as a 4-5 than I think it's going to be. I'll put it that way.
Fair enough. Tommy, are you gonna go Raptors?
So I'm gonna go Cleveland in 6, but if it goes 7 games, I'm going Raptors in 7.
Oh, I don't mind that take. I can live with that.
I like that take
because it means that they fought for that.
Yeah, I could also see Cleveland kind of running out
and
of.
Who knows? Maybe Kawhi will get some trees and join Toronto.
I tell you, you want to make the league better immediately. Make that a rule. In the playoffs, you can just go join whoever. If you're out, go. Just make it an absolute onslaught of like a no holds barred wrestling match. Like, Raptors are down 9-13.
Who is this coming out of the tunnel for San Antonio? Kawhi.
You can join any team that's down 3-0. How about that?
Either that or make it all NBA games are now lumberjack matches where if you're about to go out of bounds, somebody could be there just to push you back in. There's no out of bounds.
Yeah,
you can just be tossed back in at any given time.
You're saying things I don't understand.
Are you saying the bench should come into the chair?
See, when you said lumberjacks, I automatically thought about the lumberjack competitions that they used to show on ESPN.
Listen, not to say I have no interest in this Raptor-Cav matchup, but make them all log roll up and down the court, and you suddenly have a series I'm much more interested in watching.
Weirdly enough, I feel like Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl would enjoy that.
I also would agree to disagree here with me, but if you had a rodeo skills contest on NBA All-Star Weekend, doesn't Scotty Barnes feel like the kind who would be great at barrel rolling and lassoing? Doesn't he just seem like he'd be weirdly good at those kind of dexterity skills?
He does have that aura about him.
Yeah, it just seems like he's just like I would win 9 challenges in a row on Survivor, right?
Put him up against Kelvin Johnson.
Challenge, you'd be like, oh yeah, I do this in my backyard randomly.
If you told me that when he retires, he becomes a rodeo cowboy, I'd believe it.
I can see he's definitely going to do something. And it goes back to what I was saying. This whole Raptor team has a certain schoolyard pickup game style about them where you're like, I would lose in any athletic event to these guys. And that's true of 99% of NBA players. But even in my in shape, high school self, playing against them in ping pong, I'd be like, their hands are moving too fast to even see. There's a certain freakish athletics to them. But other NBA players have that too, and they can stop that. And then it comes down to just who's the better actual physical basketball team, and Cleveland's the better basketball team. Again, there's no secret to my picking strategy here. Who's the better physical fundamental team? Because we've entered this weird little mini era of basketball. Look at we talked about last 7 years, right? 7 different champions, right? It's no longer just bet on LeBron and you'll win 1 out of every 3 times. Bet on Jordan and you'll win every 3 out of 4 times, right? Bet on Magic and you'll win every 2 out of 3 times, right? It doesn't work that way all of a sudden for this decade. So you can't just say, oh, this team has LeBron and this team doesn't, I pick LeBron. Oh, this team has Tatum and this team doesn't, I pick Tatum. Fundamentally, the better team here is Cleveland.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's go to the 3-6 matchups. We'll start with Denver, Minnesota, and of course, take it home with our team, New York Knicks, and the Atlanta Hawks. Denver, Minnesota. I'm pretty sure most people have written off Minnesota. I don't know if I have. Is Ant healthy? Is he playing?
I believe so.
I believe so.
So if Ant is
I'll
playing,
I'll Kevin it. Please hold.
as long as Ant is playing, I think this is going to be a series. And I mean, I guess Denver's so good. There's so much more players, but Minnesota's not. I mean, Minnesota's went to the last 2 Western Conference Finals. Have they not?
I think they did.
So I mean, it's hard. It's essentially the same team with Mike Conley back on there. I believe is the only thing. I don't know. I still think Denver. I think Denver's going to win. I have Denver in 5. I think that Joker, Gordon, and crew are just going to be too much for Minnesota. Mongo?
Okay, so first of all, he's officially questionable. Second of all, I did have to Google this because I feel like we've watched this. We watch this series every year. This is like what the NHL did, where they set up the division rivalry playoff bracket, and now we're stuck watching like Stars Wild every year. And I'm like, don't we do? It's just it feels like it's the exact same playoffs every year. Although shout out, we finally get the Pennsylvania matchup this year in the NHL. We finally get Flyers Penguins, but we have seen this before. I wasn't totally losing my mind. These guys met in 23 in the first round and 24 in the semis. And they split. So we have done this before. I think both times I said it could go either way, and I picked the Nuggets in 7 because one team has Joker and one team doesn't. And I'll do the same thing. I'll just keep picking the same thing I do every time. At the end of the day, Joker, there is no answer for Joker. I know we just got done talking about teams, but neither of these are particularly good teams. They both have shallow benches. I can't really name more than 6 guys on either team. So at the end of the day, when you look at
Jamal Murray, that's the other guy's name I forgot. I'm sorry.
Who'd you say?
Jamal Murray. I forgot about him.
Oh, Jamal Murray. But when you look at kind of who matches up with whom here, at the end of the day, yes, I know 2 of the 3, big 3 of the Wolves are bigs, right? In Gobert and Reed, but it doesn't change the fact that there is no true matchup for Joker. So I'll go, Nuggets in 7. But man, these 2 could play each other the next 5 years, and I'd probably pick Nuggets in 7 every single time because I don't necessarily disbelieve in either of these guys. I love Joker. I love Anthony Edwards. And, as much as I hate watching Stars Wild every single year on ice, I could watch this series every single time. I don't mind it.
Stars Wild.
Fair enough. Tommy, who are you picking?
I am going to go Wolves in 6. I've just historically, it seems that it appears that Jokic doesn't always have the best record against Rudy Gobert. Teams that have him on there, and I guess my point is whatever team comes out of this, it's going to be a battle, and it's going to affect heavily on the next round because all 3 of us know Spurs are winning in 4 and are going to have a lot of rest between their series and when the second round starts.
Yeah, that's fair. And it as a Spurs fan, even taking away Tommy's
so it could go either way.
Even taking away Tommy's preference here, he is correct. I think the Spurs, with all due respect to the 2 1 seeds, I think the Spurs have the easiest path to ending their series the quickest. And that's a combination of Portland's lack of depth and lack of experience. And so if you're a Spurs fan, you're absolutely rooting for this thing to just go for a while. You never root for injuries, but you have to accept the fact that Anthony Edwards is not fully healthy. If he re-injures something or just exhausts himself, and the Wolves come out of it with a really shaken up Anthony Edwards trying to lead him in the second round, that could obviously be really, really good for the Spurs. So, definitely sort of a series that probably has the most ramifications. Whereas again, like we talked about, Cleveland and Toronto are probably playing for the right to lose to Detroit. A couple series are like that, but this is one that's definitely, depending on how it goes, could have major ramifications on the rest of the playoffs for sure.
So you don't think Cleveland could beat Detroit? They have like the team that's full of experience, right? That you were talking about that could beat Detroit.
They do, and I think I'm not gonna rule them out, but I think when you look at the other four possible series that are left, I think I'll say it this way: whoever of Cleveland and Toronto, and listen, I'm sorry, Cleveland Toronto fans, get angry when I say this, and then just check the math. I think whoever of Cleveland and Toronto wins will be a distant 8th out of 8th left on the power rankings of teams in the playoffs. And I don't think that's unfair because statistically the 4 seed should be last, right? The 5 seed should definitely be last. I would definitely trust Houston or the Lakers over Cleveland. I would definitely trust Denver or the Timberwolves. I think the Knicks are going to win. I wouldn't trust the Hawks as much as those teams, but I don't think the Hawks are going to beat the Knicks. Again, if the Thunder somehow lose to the Warriors or, if Detroit somehow loses to the Hornets, well then, yeah, I obviously change what I'm saying here. But if this thing goes straight chalk, if both ones, both twos, both threes, and either 4 or 5 win from the West, it doesn't matter based on what I'm saying here. The winner of Cleveland, Toronto is a distant 8th on my power rankings of teams remaining.
Fair enough. All right, let's go. Knicks, Atlanta. Mongo already said his pick. Tell me, who's your pick and how many games?
I'm going to go Knicks. I don't think it's going to be the clean sweep that it looks on chalk. I think it's going to go 6 games.
Yeah, I'll actually jump in. I'll let you go last, Kiora, because I said it, but I didn't show my work, so to speak. I'm with Tommy here. I think this one's misleading. I do think the Hawks can certainly cause some trouble. But again, I think this is an awful. Everyone said the Raptors are the matchup the Knicks wanted, and I agree from a Knick perspective. But from a Hawk perspective, this is not a great matchup. I mean, the Hawks, can be scrappy. They can play some defense, especially Dyson Daniels. His size, his length is going to give Brunson fits. But man, the Knicks have 4 or 5 point guards who can just exhaust Daniels on the other side of things, and get the switches they want, get the matchups they want, keep Brunson out of foul trouble, things of that nature. And especially, you can imagine a world where Dyson Daniels is called for 2 of the fastest fouls in playoff history when he's in Madison Square Garden. There's going to be some veteran cooking, some home cooking, some league cooking here, some big city cooking. Everything is going to work against Dyson Daniels in these playoffs, and I don't think he'll have the impact they expect him to. The other thing is, this Hawk team is still very young, and they got even more broken's not the right word, but less united, less cohesive when they made a major trade in February, right? They're figuring out how Kuminga fits in. They're figuring out, kind of what they are without Porzingis. And so, we saw them throughout the year rely on Asa Newell a lot. And there's not a chance a 23rd, 24th, whatever he was, drafted overall rookie is going to play major minutes in the playoffs. So they're going to kind of figure out what to do there with their last big off the bench. So Atlanta has to kind of figure it out on the fly too, as a lot of these teams that make major deadline deals do. And so I think all of that's going to work against them. They're scrappy enough to definitely steal a win. I think they're proud enough to win their first game in Atlanta. So that's my math on where the 2 come from. And so, I'll take Atlanta in 6. If this thing manages to get to 7, not a chance. It's not some of the most biased reffing in sports history, and the Knicks will take game 7 on their home court. So I don't think Atlanta can win, but I think they can definitely avoid a sweep or even a gentleman's sweep. The talk in New York will definitely be, the Knicks are a sham. Look at the Hawks taking it to them. But in reality, it's just the Hawks are a tougher opponent. I think they definitely could have taken the Raptors in 4. I think they could have taken Cleveland in 5. If they find their way to Detroit, I like their odds better against Detroit than Atlanta. I think Atlanta's lankiness, defense, style of play isn't great for the Knicks, but I do think their inexperience matters here, and I think the Knicks will take this series no matter what.
Fair enough. I of course, also have the Knicks winning. I don't think that surprises anyone. I think 5 makes the most sense to me. I don't really think I think sweeps in general are a little bit hard, in nowadays, especially. I think the Knicks will just take care of business. I think that they are determined to prove everyone wrong that because like people have been bad for the third in the East, and the team that has had one of the best defenses since this year changed to 2026. They get so much disrespect, and it's absolutely crazy. And I think they are determined to prove people wrong. And people are already talking about the Hawks potentially upsetting the Knicks. And I think that their players are listening and they're hearing this, and they don't want that to happen. And I think they're going to give the Hawks the business. And I think that if it isn't, I just don't see it going past 5. I really just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Tommy.
I like that because I feel like people have been sleeping on the Knicks in a sense. I haven't, because I watched them beat up on my team 2 out of 3 games they played this year. Like the Knicks are real. They are 100% real. But I also don't think they're as real as say the Thunder, the Spurs, or the Celtics, or even the Pistons.
I think they're more real than the Celtics. I think that the Celtics are going. I think
they're maybe at the same level as the Celtics.
Tatum's going to get fatigued. I think so. Here's my prediction for how the playoffs are going to pan out for the East. I have Detroit, Cleveland, New York, Boston. I think Boston is going to get a bit banged up because guess what Philly likes to do? Play dirty. And I think that there's a good chance that they're not 100% going into the Knicks matchup. I think the Knicks, as long as the Knicks can stay healthy, which again has been an issue for the Knicks in playoffs in general. Knicks, Boston, I think the Knicks end up taking that series. I think they'll take it in 6. And then I have Detroit, Cleveland. I will have Detroit coming out on top of that in 6. And I think the Knicks beat the Detroit. And I do feel the Knicks, as long as they are as hungry as I think they are, I can see the Knicks getting to the finals this year. They have a good path. I think people are. I could just be underselling Boston because I want to.
No, don't do that. Don't humor yourself here. Listen, the Knicks went 3. I get that Tatum was hurt for most of the year, but the Knicks went 3-1 against Boston. They have no reason to fear them. The Knicks have no reason to fear Atlanta. The Knicks also beat Boston in the playoffs last year. They beat Detroit in the playoffs last year. This playoff bracket should look very, very familiar. They have no Indiana to lucky bounce game.
That's
1
the team that I was worried about, and they don't have to deal with them.
Right, they don't have to deal with them. This is absolutely a bracket that very much favors the Knicks, that they should be very comfortable with. And, you're not wrong that because Boston has to get a little, worse for wear in the first round, this path is arguably their best path. But take these 8 teams, shuffle them up. I think the Knicks always are the favorite, in my opinion. I don't think there's anyone in this Eastern pool who I'm necessarily afraid of. Now, I do think, though, if you are the Knicks, I mean, the mainstream conversation in New York media today was, what do the Knicks have to do for them to not pull the trigger on a Giannis trade this offseason? Like, the media has already given up on this particular brand of Knick basketball. So if you're the Knicks, I mean, there's enough reason to sort of have pause at every step of the way. If you're one of the young guys, because you'd presumably be involved in a trade, you're obviously playing for your home. If you are Karl Anthony Towns, you are playing to get the haters off your back. But on the flip side, if you're one of the brand names on this team, you're going, if we lose to Boston in 5, we could play with Giannis next year. Not mad about that. They're obviously these are professional athletes. They're not going to tank anything. But at the same time, I mean, they're the only team really I can think of right now. Maybe you can make the argument of the Rockets with the dream of Van Fleet coming back, but very few teams are already in the playoffs and looking ahead to 2027, right? I mean, how backwards of a franchise are we? How backwards of a sports city are we that we are on paper arguably the favorite in the East? We're still having that conversation. But just to close out what you were saying, Kilroy, Windhorst was asked the question today, kind of which would surprise him more, a team from the East winning it all, or a team other than the Spurs or Thunder winning the West. And he said the latter would surprise him more, which if you kind of do the math, it's a weird question, but if you do the math on that, it means that Windhorst believes that the Knicks or Celtics or Pistons have a better shot of beating the Spurs or Thunder than the Rockets, Lakers, or Nuggets do, which if you extrapolate that means in his power rankings, he has the Knicks either 3, 4, or 5, depending on where you have them against the Celtics or Pistons. That's high. That's a team that can and should be able to win it all. If you go into the playoffs with a very, very smart human being who knows his basketball, having you somewhere in his top 4 or 5 in the power rankings, you're a contender. So you're not dreaming. That's not Homer sensation logic. You have every right to think the Knicks can pull it off this year.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. That makes me feel a little bit more better.
I mean, personally, I don't have them going to the finals, but I could 100% see that happening. It's not like I'm counting them out. The way I went doesn't have them getting there.
Now, Tommy, I am going to be honest with you. I do think the second round ends up being a struggle for the Spurs, whether it's Minnesota or Denver. And I
was about to say that too.
Their inexperience is going to come up, whether it's then or if it's the Western Conference Finals.
I completely agree.
The Thunder, or even the Rockets. If the Rockets beat them, Kevin Durant, there's a good chance Kevin Durant can, and especially with it being OKC, his old team, could see him taking it up an extra notch and putting it, giving them the business, which is my thing I'm saying today.
I love that. I love that. That's all of a sudden our thing. We just give people the business on this show.
Is that a segment? Giving
them the business.
And that
it's where I just talk macroeconomics for 15 minutes and we see who's willing to stop.
I'll listen. I took that in college, university, whatever you want to call it.
I think I took that in college.
For our international viewers, university.
The university.
So do we want to talk second round then? Because I would love to.
I am. I'm just. I am. You don't have to talk about whatever you don't want to talk about.
I do.
But I am saying I think the Spurs, if playing Denver, if it's Spurs Denver, I think Denver wins. I think if Spurs Minnesota wins, I think that it's just too much
and that's
playoff experience
fair.
between them. And again, it's nothing against this team. I think the Spurs team next year and in the future, their ceiling is going to be higher than OKC's. I just think I think that to be. I feel that to be true.
Oh, yeah.
I think this year they overachieved more than even you thought they were, and you were very high on them. That I think that their playoff inexperience is at some point going to catch up to them. I do believe it's going to be in the second round. It could easily be the Western Conference Finals, but I don't see them getting to the finals. I just feel like whether it's Houston or OKC, they can't get past them in the Western Conference Finals. But I do think they are not.
I think differently, but it's not just bias. I promise it's not just bias.
Okay, go on.
Okay. Sorry.
Maybelline. I don't.
Sorry. Okay. I mentioned earlier that a long series between Denver and Minnesota is going to be an important factor. I am not one at all counting out playoff inexperience when I say this, because regardless if it goes Minnesota or Denver, have San Antonio winning, but in a long series. I think it's either, if it's Denver, it's Spurs in 7. If it's Minnesota, it's Spurs in 6.
My concern is if it's a long series, Wemby won't be able to play the whole series.
You're probably right. I'm choosing to not think that way at the moment. That's my little bit of bias slipping through, but you're probably right. And I also think the Thunder Rockets will be a much more interesting series than people think it will be. I think that could easily go 6 or 7 games as well. And I think the Thunder will win that series, and we'll get Thunder Spurs in the conference finals.
I mean, if it's up to the NBA and they continue to want to have a different champion every year, yeah, I think the Rockets are going to beat the Thunder.
I never said they would beat the Thunder. I just said that they would kick them to 6 to 7 games.
Listen, I thought Phoenix was honestly going to be trouble. to a handful of these teams because of Dylan Brooks. Ironically, the one team that doesn't matter with is the Thunder, where they have their own Dylan Brooks. I think Lou Dort is criminally underrated in terms of what he can do to a lot of these guys, mini Draymond there. I think he'd be able to control KD. Ironically, against the Spurs, he has to kind of play out of position in order to contribute against somebody. He's not guarding he's not particularly going to be at his best guarding Wemby. He's not going to be at his best guarding Castle. So they'll have to kind of misuse him. I'm with you guys. I do see it as Thunder Spurs. I think the Thunder have enough depth to stick with the Spurs, and then experience matters. So I do, Tommy. So I had Thunder over Knicks when we made our predictions back in August. I'm sticking with it. It's what I had all along.
And that's fair. I could see that. I'm not at all mad about that take. I do want to go back real quick. It's a round one. If the Warriors somehow make it to the playoffs and play the Thunder, I said this in our group chat. Draymond versus Dort is going to be absolute cinema.
It's going to be like that episode of Big Bang Theory where it's first one to make a free throw gets the nicer office between Sheldon and his little rival there, Kripke. Neither one's going to shoot. They're both going to play elite defense, and neither one's going to even attempt to look at the basket. It's going to be just an unnecessary use of two great defensive minds.
So you're going to say it's just going to be a boxing match? Can we just have that?
Yes. I mean, I assume eventually, with no interest in playing offense, one's going to grab the other's ear or fight. They'll get themselves ejected a couple times.
Here's what I think will happen. Dort will hurt someone. Draymond is going to step in, and it's going to be a fight.
Oh.
Now, what happens if Zaza Pachulia comes out of retirement for the game?
Listen, if it's a lumberjack match, it's no DQ. I'm just going to put that back into the woods again.
And Shea better watch his ankles. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, back to Thunder Spurs, because I do think, like I said, that the Spurs and the Thunder make the conference finals. By
the way, which I was saying, I do not think they are, Mongo. I actually have Denver versus OKC in the Western Conference Finals.
Listen, I'm not mad about that either, because Joker going to Joker, and if there's anyone who's going to take out the Spurs,
I'm not bad about that either.
It's a team with an elite center, right? I mean, you need to take Wemby completely, to court, on defense. You need to really give him the defensive business. And so if Joker's always out, on the perimeter, tiring him out. Now, if you're the Spurs, you're considering, do we not even put Wemby out there? Do we?
Well, they probably put Castle on him if he's hanging by the perimeter.
Right. Do you get cute on defense? And, again, that's where being from the, pop tree, he can cook up something better than just about anybody. So, I wouldn't rule him out. But that's pretty. The only two ways to beat the Spurs, in my opinion, are either have an absolute elite center, which Denver does check that box, or have enough depth to go blow for blow with them, which the Thunder do. I don't think.
You don't think Rudy Gobert is a dominant center?
Not
anymore.
I'm kidding. You don't have to.
Not the way you need to be to mess with. You can't out Wemby. Nobody out Wemby's the Hut. I'm just gonna keep dropping in slogans until somebody sues us tonight. You can't beat Wemby at his own game right now. He's too young. He's too in the zone. He has too much support from his teammates that he knows how to use. And I mean, the fact that he's so young is crazy. And I will give Tommy credit. Again, like we talked about, listen, we all had the Spurs with a winning record. I don't think any of us had the Spurs being in the conversation of team that could legitimately win it all, other than Tommy. Tommy seemed to have no ceiling on this team. And so I'll give him credit there. The fact that we can even have this conversation right now is a testament to the Spurs, to Wemby, to everything going on in San Antonio. But as good as they are and as good as Wemby is, it doesn't change the fact that we haven't seen this show already, right? A team arrives early. It promptly figures out it is who we thought it was in the playoffs. It then regresses the next year, and then it settles into who it is, right? We saw that with Orlando. We saw that with the Julius Randle version of the Knicks. We saw that with the Kings. And then in some cases, it led to the Knicks realized this is not sustainable, and they changed up their gears, right? The Magic have settled into kind of being the 4 through 7 every year, and they seem to be content with that because nobody really cares about basketball in Orlando anyway. And the Kings were not sustainable, and they are
not true. They made that big trade that ended up not doing anything.
That's true. They did go for the Desmond Bain trade, but it wasn't like
Thank you. I forgot who it was.
the amount of volume they gave up for Desmond Bain. There was enough. I think it's different than the Brunson trade in that the Brunson trade, it clearly felt more, we're taking this to the next level. I feel like the Magic, if you're making kind of a spectrum, the Magic are kind of in the middle. The Kings clearly abandoned ship on what they had going on. The Knicks were clearly changing gears completely, kind of shifting gears up completely. I think the Magic are kind of in the middle where they were looking to add to what they had, right? The fact that they used mostly, I mean, they moved on from, I think KCP was the veteran in that trade, but they tried to use picks, to kind of try and enhance what they had. They were trying to build on it. But they definitely thought, a Banchero era Magic team, was sustainable for a while. And again, I mean, none of us think the Magic can win this year, but they definitely didn't Sacramento Kings themselves. I mean, they're definitely somewhere between the Knicks and the Kings in terms of what they were able to do with this era.
So real quick before we end this show, because I wanted to ask this anyway. So do we think Banchero is still going to be a star, or is this about as good as he's going to be, and as good, let me rephrase that. Is he good enough to be the best player on a team to carry a team, is what I mean to say.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here and ask a question of what. Listen, I just looked up the stats here, so these are real. Roughly to the nearest whole number, 22, 8, and 5. Now that's not your, Giannis 31, 10, and 8. So I guess in that sense, do I think he can get to that level? I guess to answer your question directly, no, I don't. But the question becomes, if you were to put Giannis at any age with Desmond Bain, with Franz Wagner, and they were to play at the level they can play at, would even Giannis get to those numbers, or would it be better? I mean, we saw how much Dame hated his time in Milwaukee. We saw Chris Middleton basically get cast off instead of trying to, finish out the glory days with Milwaukee. Like, there's a reason these guys who put up these huge numbers can't play with a lot of guys. It's why, as much as Kevin hates LeBron, it's impressive that a big three there was able to stay big. Nobody had to take a back seat to make it work. So I guess to me, the more relevant question is, if I'm an Orlando fan, would I rather see 5 more years of Banchero going 22, 8, and 5, or would I rather see him get up to 27, 9, and 7, but Bain is demanding a trade next year and Franz Wagner ends up spending the last 8 years of his career on a different team and no agent wants to go play with Banchero? I think I'd rather have him be a 1B, especially in a city, a market, a historical franchise that doesn't particularly attract that many free agents. You want him to be somebody who looks more appealing as a teammate. So if I'm Orlando, 22, 8, and 5, I'm very okay with that. If I wanted to, let's say Orlando moved to New York tomorrow and took out that argument of geography, do I think he could absolutely take over the league? No, I don't.
Fair enough. All right, let's wrap this up. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment down below who you have winning in the first round of the Eastern and Western Conference playoffs for the 2026 NBA playoffs. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Spurs Celtics finals. Calling it now.